Now, for those waiting for the M4 MacBook Air, Gurman gives us an update that we could see this within weeks. That's it. Yeah, Gurman loves to be vague, and he continues to be vague here. Now, within weeks is quite a large time frame, because weeks could mean many weeks, or could of course mean within the next week or so. Now, if I were to guess, based on what we've heard so far about other Apple products that are releasing around this time frame, we are expecting the iPhone SE next week, and so maybe we get a week of press releases, and the MacBook Air also drops next week. I mean, that would make sense. Apple did that last year with the M4 Max, where we saw a new model every single day, and so yeah, I could see Apple giving us a series of press releases with the iPhone SE, the MacBook Air, the iPad 11, and the iPad Air launching on the same week. However, that's just a theory on my end. Of course, we don't know exactly for sure what Apple's plans are yet, but at the very least, guys, we should see this launch before spring, and I don't think there's going to be an actual event for new products. It does seem we're getting press releases, and that doesn't make sense because all these spring announcements are just spec refreshes for the most part. Nothing has a new design. macOS 15.2 also has evidence of two new Macs with the codename Mac 16,12 and Mac 16,13, which is clearly the 13-inch and 15-inch MacBook Air with the M4, so it's clear these Macs are launching very soon. You know what else I foresee happening soon, guys? You clicking that subscribe button, of course. It would bring you the latest about Apple right to the subscription box, so please consider it. It would be appreciated. Join the Saranbyte gang now. Anyway, while the M4 MacBook Air will be a chipset refresh for the most part, I do expect some other changes, as we saw with the MacBook Pros. So for example, we can expect a center stage camera, which would be a nice change considering the camera will now be able to follow you around as you move, and also you get access to desk view if you're presenting something. The nano texture coating, I'm not sure if the Air's going to get, but considering the base iMac has this option, maybe the base MacBook Air is going to follow suit. I also expect new colors. We've had 2 generations of MacBook Air with the same set of colors, and obviously Apple gave the MacBook Pro and iMac a new set of colors halfway through their design cycle, and so now with this Air reusing this shell for the 3rd time, we can finally expect some new shades, hopefully something more vibrant, because the Air should be a fun looking MacBook. I've had enough of boring, serious looking Macs. It's time for some color. But of course, the big news will be 16 gigs of RAM as standard, which obviously is already the case with the M3 and M2 models, but regardless, this is a game-changing feature for these new models, and I'm assuming once the M4 model launches at $1099, we should see the M3 drop to $999, which will be a great deal as well. Now that's pretty much everything about the MacBook Airs, but let's delve into the other Macs we should see somewhat soon. So the next model to get refreshed, according to Gurman, is the Mac Studio. This was initially on track to launch with the MacBook Air, but has now been pushed to June. However, I don't want to call out Gurman here, because months before he told us the Mac Studio would launch mid-2025, and so why exactly is there now a delay? Anyway, it makes sense to launch this mid-2025, specifically at WWDC, because that's where the last model launched. And if you think about it, lots of creative professionals and developers, aka Apple nerds, are going to be buying this, and so they're the ones watching WWDC in the first place, and so pitching this machine to the target audience is the best idea. Now this is a desktop, but Apple's going to be reusing this shell for the 3rd time, so it would be nice to see new colors, maybe a space black option, but considering the Mac Mini did not get any new color options, I do doubt that. But hey, the SD card reader moving to the front like the Mac Mini would be a nice change. Moving to the Mac Pro, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but we have leaks that once again Apple's having issues with producing an Extreme chipset for the higher end Macs. So way back when, we had leaks about an M2 Extreme chipset coming to a future Mac Pro, which would essentially be 2 M2 Ultras stuck together to give this machine insane performance. However, it seems Apple ran out of glue because they could not stick these chips together, and so as a result we had a pretty underwhelming Apple Silicon refresh to the Mac Pro, where it had the same chassis as before with the exact same performance as the much smaller Mac Studio, whilst costing more and really only offering expandable storage as the only upgrade. But when I say expandable, you had to pay for Apple's expensive storage modules, so it was kinda pointless. So all in all, this was a piss poor update, guys, and many of us were hoping with the M4 generation of Macs, maybe we could finally get an M4 Extreme chipset based on the M4 Macs that could theoretically offer 64 CPU cores and 160 GPU cores. That is a lot of cores and would give us mind-blowing levels of performance for those who actually are going to be pushing their Macs to the absolute extreme. But unfortunately, it seems once again, Apple's decided to ditch these plans. According to the information, Apple wants to free up engineering resources for their AI server chipset instead, since Apple Intelligence has now become the next big thing, and so for the time being, plans to make an extreme chipset have been cancelled. Now, John Gruber, who's another journalist, had made a good point that Apple starts developing these chipsets way before they actually release, and so whatever's been dropped right now may be the M5 or the M6 Extreme, and development for the M4 Extreme might have already been wrapped up, so it's ready for release later this year. That could be the case, and I would like to see that because right now the Mac Pro is in a bit of an awkward spot, since currently it does not offer enough differences to justify the much higher price compared to a Mac Studio. Though one could argue the Mac Pro was never that popular in the first place, and so I can understand why they're focusing on the AI server chipset from a business perspective, but here's hoping they can either simplify the range and just kill off the Mac Pro, or give it a redesign and also much more powerful hardware so it has a place and an actual USB. Now initially I thought we'd see a refresh to this around mid-2025 as well alongside the new Mac Studio, but Gurman says it's been pushed back to late 2025. Now of course we're still unsure if it's getting an Ultra and Extreme chipset, but I do also wonder if it's coming out in late 2025, will this get an M4, M5 generation of Apple Silicon? Surely it would be kind of late to be launching this with any version of the M4, because there would be M5 MacBooks by then. But either way, for the first time ever guys, every Mac will at one point be on the same generation of M series chips. I say first time because the Mac Pro never got the M1, nor did it get the M3. That actually did not come to any desktop Mac apart from the iMac, which jumped from the M1 to the M3. So basically, Apple cares a lot about the M4, they're going to be chucking it in every single product, and it's really because they want to push Apple Intelligence, and also because the M4 does have some decent upgrades over its predecessors. Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments, make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this, and thank you for watching. So recently there's been conflicting rumors regarding the iPhone SE4 coming with a notch or dynamic island, but now credible display analyst Ross Young chimes in and tells us we should see, drumroll, a notch. Which is not surprising, I told you guys. I've been saying since day one that Apple wants its iPhone to look more dated compared to newer iPhone models, and so a notch does just that when the rest of the range of course has an island. And yes, I know some of you guys had mentioned that sales are slow in key countries like China right now, and so Apple may not want to risk the iPhone looking too outdated, which is a fair point, but then again, Apple would rather you buy higher end iPhones. The smartphone market has matured, and so whilst they're not shipping as many iPhones as before, if they can get most to buy the highest end devices, that's upwards of $1,000, there's no real difference revenue-wise. So in a way, the iPhone SE4 looking outdated does benefit Apple. This is big brain stuff from Timothy, and the man knows how to generate revenue, and so whilst I do still think the SE4 is going to be great